In this video, we'll be discussing the second book in my series. If you haven't already, buy the first one at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Links in the description below. Thank you. What's up, friends and fans? I'm Kellen Jorgensen, as you know, author of Chris and Lloyd Want Superpowers, and now the world's greatest book club. Once again, joining me for this podcast, we have my friend Isaac Beavers, the inspiration for Chris in the book, and a good friend of mine who is probably my number one go-to source for feedback on my material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually been fun being that because I mean, even though I am your best friend, like it's still it's I would still love the series even if you weren't. Like it's a really I really enjoy it.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, today we are jumping into the topic of World's Greatest Book Club.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Cheers to the second book.
Oh, exactly. So with this one, so first off, because I'm sure people would like to know, where does World's Greatest Book Club fit in with Chris and Lloyd?
You talking like where are they gonna overlap, or like where in the timeline of this universe?
like in relativity to Chris and Lloyd, where does World's Greatest Book Club take place?
I would say the World's Greatest Book Club takes place about 2 or 3 years before Chris and Lloyd, which I know that's a big shock. The sequel taking place before the original, unheard of. Actually.
Yeah,
I'm the first person to actually ever do that.
Yeah,
in history of anything, really.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
so, pioneer in my field, actually. But it's more or less the relevance within the universe. You know, like take DC for example.
Yeah,
like Batman, Superman, Flash. They're all going to be way more important in that universe than say like Aztec or insert person no one's heard of.
Yeah.
But it's Chris and Lloyd obviously are going to be the most important roles in the overarching books. And then World's Greatest Book Club now will also have a pretty heavy hand in what's to come as well.
Well, that sounds like really fun to look forward to. So, how different was it in the writing process between Chris and Lloyd, where you're writing the story from two persons, or really from one person's perspective, but it's like
it's pretty limited to just the two of them.
Yeah, it's just the two of them versus you now have to keep track of 5 people all at once.
Well,
while still maintaining it in one person's perspective.
Right. Well, to be fair, I didn't always stick to the one person's perspective. I did it from Pamela's point of view mainly.
Yeah.
Just because like she's the leader of the team, like most of the story is connected to her specifically.
Yeah.
But I did bounce around in a few chapters in
I remember there's the scene where they're we already have the spoiler warning. Yeah, the scene at Clark's house where after they go to bed and Clark is trying to help Pamela, there's that moment where you have him sitting in the kitchen and then she rounds the corner,
right.
like stuff like that.
Or when they or like the sick phase where they were all feeling unwell, where the powers were changing them from inside. I bounced around because like you had to John's house, his experience, to Clark's, to Kristen and Julie's, and just checking in with everybody, seeing how each of them is progressing and how they're each discovering their powers and that. I didn't want to just I didn't want this to be the Pamela story. It's Pamela is in front, but the story's about everybody.
Yeah. So Was it more difficult to make sure that, like, because everyone seemed to kind of get a fair shake in the story, like, yeah. So, like, was it difficult balancing that at all, or
as far as like importance for all the characters, you mean?
More just like everyone kind of getting a seat at the table, kind of thing, like everyone getting a fair amount of time.
Right. I think the hardest person to do that for was actually Julie.
Yeah.
Just because, like, when she first starts out, like, all she has is really, like, night vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that only really comes in handy for when they're, like, traversing the tunnels and that. Mm-hmm. So I just don't have a lot on hand for her to do.
Yeah.
Like, Pamela and Clark are, like, very, like, in front in the story. Like, they're both, like, interacting with each other a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Clark is Pamela's best friend in this scenario, so she's, like, relying on him a lot, so he's obviously a lot in there. And then Kristen and John are both, like, the strongest physically in the group, so they'll be the ones that most of the action is focused on, and then that just kind of leaves Julie out in the middle there. So trying to find a way for her to do her share in the scenarios was a bit tricky, but I feel like that I got a decent mix on there. And
yeah, I as a reader, it was interesting to see it, because, like, when Julie's powers first manifested, it was like, as you said, yeah, it was just night vision and stuff. Well, I mean, there was like one or two other things.
Yeah, like she walked through the glass first, and that's how they, like, discovered, oh, you got powers, but then they didn't know how to bring that back out.
Like, I feel like out of everyone, I mean, she had the longest, I'd say the longest learning curve.
Oh, she still does, believe me.
Because like Pamela's powers seem to kind of just happen.
Yeah.
Like, she finally, like, she would manage to, like, push through and like because she knows what her power is, but, like, Julie seems to have a lot more that she can do that she just hasn't tapped into yet.
Pamela knew what her powers was. She just didn't know how to activate that.
Mm-hmm.
But Julie, I think still now and still for a while yet, doesn't fully grasp exactly what she's capable
like
of.
The full scope of her powers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's still plenty of like, where the characters are right now is not at their peak. Like, they still have plenty of more Bruh.
Oops, sorry. I know, I'm fixing it. I got it.
The constant promo throughout the video.
Yeah, I know.
Don't touch it. But oh yeah. Like they each will grow as they get more, like, a better foothold on what they're doing and what their powers can actually let them do. Like,
yeah.
They don't know. Like, they're familiar with the room, they just don't know how high the ceiling is.
That makes sense, yeah.
If that's a good metaphor.
No, that sounds like a good metaphor, because, like, it does sound like there's, like, even in, like, we even saw, like Clark, he was even still finding new ways to use his powers. Mm-hmm. Like that moment where he just, like, thins out a sheet of water and just, like, slices through his thing, like, that is a nice little hint at that, like, he's still exploring it. Like, he has control, but he's still finding new ways to use it.
Yeah, I think Clark himself, like, he's more like you've seen it throughout the book, he's taking a more, like, intellectual and, like, thought out approach to doing this and, like, helping everyone find out their powers. So Clark himself is going to be the one to, like, try and do more, like, finicky things like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just, like, pushing water at somebody, he, like, thins it out and then, like, with the blade, like you said.
Yeah.
So he's definitely going to be one. Him and Julie are probably, like, I don't want to give too much away, but him and Julie are probably going to be the two who will have the most, like, expanse in what they can do with their powers.
The most versatility.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that It did seem that way because like John and Kristen.
Yeah.
They know what their powers are.
Yeah, their powers are pretty straightforward.
They're pretty brawly.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like that's where they're capped off at.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like theirs are pretty just head on what they are.
Yeah.
For the most part, at least.
Yeah. So speaking on the powers, so how did you come to? Because as we know from the last podcast, like this is a universe that you've been building up in your head for a while. But if I correct me if I'm wrong, these 5 characters weren't all originally a team.
Oh, they were. Yeah.
Oh, they were. Oh, okay. But how did like coming up with these characters and putting together like on one team, like how did you go about like coming up with like doing that? Like,
I believe I came up with World's Greatest Book Club a couple of years ago in college.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to heroes with me, like sometimes I'll just like I do a lot of just like mindless like wandering in my head, like just wondering like, oh, what would be cool, and then like I don't have any like cool specific story or any like oh snap moment. Like I think I just needed to like, man, I don't have like another team. Like I need to throw together like another good team.
Yeah.
Like I had a bunch of like good teams in my head, but like I didn't like have any one that just really like clicked enough to like really do anything with.
Yeah, that makes
like
sense.
I can stick like a bunch of like random guys from the list together and call that a team, but I wanted to make one that was a team from the ground up.
Yeah,
like these were people that worked together. So I had the 2 sisters, I had the fire and the water that would have like an interesting dynamic there, and then like the energy life main protagonist to really round everything off there.
Well, that sounds good. Like, and you're talking about the water and the fire and water. Like, you really reflected that very well in their personalities, I believe.
Yeah.
Like they are very much polar opposites.
That's one of the things that I wanted to do. I didn't take it into much consideration when I first made the characters, but when I started like planning out this book, I really wanted to do that. How their powers are very reflective of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I'm not saying it's definite, but like, how do you know that's not what the book does? Like, that's not the point of the book, you know?
Yeah.
Like, everyone has a set power that they were.
It like unlocks the ability inside of them.
Well, no, I'm not saying like a Deadpool scenario, but like it's not like if you were to open the page, the book yesterday, you would have got something different.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to do it, like you're gonna get what you're gonna get. It doesn't matter when or if you open it. I mean, it matters if you open it,
but yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it's like it gives you a power reflection of your own.
Well, yeah, like
maybe not confirmed yet.
Yeah, maybe because like, well, like I saw that it seemed that way. I mean, we like in the case of Jawbreaker.
Yes.
Like Jawbreaker was a he was very much one of John's friends, and he was always like we didn't get to see much of him before he turned into Jawbreaker, but you get the distinct impression that he was the bully. He was the big boy.
I believe that he was with John in the beginning when they were picking on Pamela.
I remember that he was there, but like before that,
I don't think I ever like name dropped him or like specifically described him out, but like he was one of the friends with John.
But yeah, he was that kind of guy that's just like no, like he was always that he already was that kind of big brute guy, and that's just what it came out with. And like speaking of Jawbreaker, we can move to the topic of villains, because villains is something that we've had. I mean, we had quite a bit of in Chris and Lloyd, but compared to the amount of heroes, it was very far and few between.
Each chapter, you usually had like a good guy and a bad guy kind of moment interaction that you could, they have the good guy, bad guy thing for the most part, most of the chapters, and then they just moved on to the next.
Well, yeah, and then there were those cases where you had bad guys, but they weren't bad guys. They were just the bad guy of the scenario. One that springs to mind is Hellraven in the case of Mandarin Colby. Like Hellraven is a good guy. He hunts down demons and stuff like that, and all that. But like it was just a case of misunderstanding kind of thing. Like that's
which happens a lot in Chris and Lloyd.
It does. Like pretty much all the villains that they encountered over the series were all present in that final chapter, pretty much. Almost all.
Nearly every chapter in this book, I think, except for 2, have an effect on the ending. Whether it's the hero from that chapter, or the villain from one of those chapters, or just bringing something back up that was established in another chapter.
Exactly. Now, carrying that over to book club, like, we had 4 villains listed in the series, but we've only actually met 2 of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're talking the villains born from the book.
Yeah, the villains born from the book. Yes. Were these all villains? I know not all of them were villains that you had already
created before the book, or
because I know I was there. I remember you bringing up Jawbreaker to me beforehand. Like I knew of the character.
For the record,
when
it comes to creating villains, I am not as good as that as making heroes, because when making heroes, you make a character and it's just like, man, this guy is so cool. I love this character. I don't want him to be bad guy, so you just make him a good guy.
Yeah.
That's why I have 300 plus heroes and a little over 100 bad guys.
Yeah.
So one of the tools that I used for helping me make more bad guys, which was very effective and a little embarrassing to admit, was the video game DC Lego Supervillains or Lego DC Supervillains. Yeah. Because the character customization in that game is so broad. There was a meme where it said character customization before, and it was Darth Jar Jar from the Star Wars one.
Yeah.
And it said character customization now, and it had a screenshot from Lego DC Supervillains, and they made Omni-Man and Invincible.
Yeah.
Like you could have told me that was from Lego Invincible, and I would have believed you.
Yeah.
But that's how deep the customization goes, and just being able to just doing Lego stuff, putting pieces together of your character and building that, and then you can build off of that. I've made about I want to say over more than 20 new villains just from that game alone.
Exactly.
And Jawbreaker was one of the first of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew that I had to do something with him. So I think Jawbreaker was... No, because Plasmat
you had beforehand.
Plasmat I had way before Jawbreaker. Mm-hmm. Plasmat was the first one of those I made. Jawbreaker I made in the game and then used him for the book. But the other 2 that we haven't mentioned yet...
which was Open Wound and Honey Badger,
Open Wound and Honey Badger, who didn't physically appear in the book, but they were mentioned once or twice, and maybe we'll see them later. But those 2 were made specifically for the book.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
So you've had
the ones I made specifically for the book who were barely in the book.
Yeah.
Who were not actually in the book.
Yeah, no, they did not seem to be. But moving on from Jawbreaker then to Plasmat, you seemed to with Jawbreaker you played him off of John quite a bit because they're friends, and that dynamic is like it's kind of Jawbreaker. Yeah, it's like
he's not friends with Plasma.
No, he's not. No, I'm leading up to something.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No. Because like you played him off of John, because it's like a they were friends, and like it has a very like, oh, you could have turned out just like me kind of feel to it. But like when it came to Plasmat, it just seemed like it just seemed like something he didn't really have anyone to play off of. I mean, yeah, you had him with like Julie and Kristen, but like
he messed around with Kristen quite a bit.
Yeah,
Plasmat is actually much different than that, because
mm-hmm.
if you look at what his friend Rick says when they go meet with him in the principal's office after he starts that fight, Plasmat was always like, I want to say troubled.
Yeah.
Like, like there was those kids in high school where they got sent to the office all the time. They weren't like bad kids, but they caused a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And they just, stuff like that. So he was like one of those kids, but then he gets gifted this crazy erratic power, and then he's got that thing over his head, the light bulb, and he goes, I don't have to listen to anyone anymore.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want and no one can stop me. And that's typically the driving force behind these villains is that they're at a very impressionable age, like that age, like, oh, no one gets me. It's like, I want people to leave me alone, whatever like that. They have a lot of their problems stacking on top of them right now. And then they literally just get a free pass to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And they take control of that and do not the best things. So.
All right. So well, there's only one more villain. Well, there's a couple more, but the one that definitely that I wanted to talk about was the teacher.
Mr. Callow.
Yeah, Mr. Callow.
The grand villain of this book.
The grand villain of this book. Yes, he. Do you have like a name for the thing he turned into, or did you?
I called it Eldritch Man.
Yeah.
But I didn't put that anywhere in the book, of course. And they're taking him off to the prison, so I don't know if we'll see him in that form. He is still alive. I didn't kill him.
Well, yes, he just went back to being a human, at least for the time being.
Yeah. So I will establish here that he can, like, if he pushes himself like hard enough, like with concentration.
It's like the Hulk almost.
Kind of, but it's not like triggered by.
It's not triggered by rage. Triggered by him. He triggers it himself.
Yeah, like he'll have to like just like and then do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably reintroduce him back at some point, but he's really only here for this book, and not very important going on, as you could tell from the epilogue.
Oh, exactly, and for everyone at home, kind of thing. With that epilogue, I don't want to talk too much about it because I do know, like, you've clued me in on a little bit.
Yeah,
But I don't really want to release that to anyone.
I'll play coy with my answers. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Because like, so the man we see at the end of that,
yes,
where he after he rips the mask off and everything.
The principal.
Yeah, the principal. Yeah. He seems like the overarching, like, the mastermind of the story.
Because you see, by the end, Callow wasn't the top of command in that chain.
Yeah.
So you had the supervillains running around town, and then you had Callow over that, and then you get the reveal that Mr. D, the red herring that I set up, was also involved with that. And then you have this new mystery guy over all of that. He calls it my plan.
Yeah.
I think. Or the plan.
Yeah.
No, Callow calls it the plan. He calls it my plan.
Yeah.
So he's definitely the top of what's going on here.
Well, and I'm assuming we'll see him again eventually. as I'm assuming Mr. Deed.
Right. Of course.
But so what is the do you have anything? So now that we've kind of worked our way through the book a bit, how do you have anything for like the future of the story that you could clue us in on, or anything coming up in the CNL universe
pertaining to that?
Either pertaining to the book club or what you got
kind of went nowhere. And I would say, okay, I'll answer the pertaining to that book, to that Deed and mystery man here. That mystery guy is going to be one of the biggest players in the game of the entire book series.
So like he'll be like the guy, the man in the shadows, the the grand bad, the kind of like the Thanos of the story kind of thing.
I'm not confirming or denying going as far to say the Thanos, but I'm just saying like his piece on the board is one that will be there till the end of the game.
Okay. So moving on from book club itself.
Yes.
You introduced well, maybe not
introduced, yes.
Yeah, you introduced a new team in here, and you had kind of a little thing towards the end there. Are we going to see more of them in the future?
You know the answer to
that already. I know already. I'm setting it up for the video.
You're playing interviewer here.
Yes, I am. That's the point of this.
In about like somewhere in between the halfway mark, Pamela's walking along the sidewalk, right? And and Plasmat comes flying around town, shooting off lightning everywhere. He spots her, and he shoots out a bolt of electricity straight for her, and she braces for impact, and she gets blocked by it. A giant hand stretches out and blocks the lightning directly in the palm. And in the quote of the online version of that, I end the chapter there. Like she looks up, sees the guy, and the guy says, "Are you all right?" And I end it there. Yeah. Purposely because I wanted to trap people into thinking that was Whip Hand, that was Lloyd. Yeah. Only to just pull the rug back out underneath. Yeah. But no, she gets saved by a team of 3 superheroes. One with long, stretchy, expandable hands and arms. One with like feline attributes with cat ears and cat claws, which I'm really hoping I don't regret adding that character into this book series. That's a very dangerous game I'm playing there. Yeah, especially with the internet. Yes. And then the last one is a man who flies on metal discs. Yeah. Right. And then you see them reappear again in the first half of the epilogue where they're watching the broadcast about the World's Greatest Book Club team, and they drop a little nugget of foreshadowing at the end saying, it's like, hey, these are the new kids in town, the new superheroes. Do you think they'll have to go what we went through? And he says, God, I hope not. And I will announce this here because I announced book club in the previous podcast. I'll announce the 3rd book coming out here. And this one, the 3rd book will focus on these 3 heroes. It's called The Rise of the Renegades. Yeah. That's who they are. It is Knucklavee, the team's leader, the stretchy arm guy. Paws, the cat boy. And Magnet Man, the magnet man. Yeah. Now, 2 of those characters, we have seen a variation of them in another book that you read. Yes. That I read. That you wrote. I apologize. Yes. I can't. I didn't I'm going to say I read. If anyone bothered to look back further on my page before I started doing all the Chris and Lloyd stuff, you may find a book called Monster Camp, where Yes, I know you were a very big fan of that.
I was a very big fan of Monster Camp.
I was taking it nowhere.
Yeah.
It was going nowhere very fast.
Yes.
But I thought it was fun writing about all these characters. And much as I don't know if I explained this in the other podcast or not, but before I started doing the actual Chris and Lloyd universe as it was meant to be, I wanted to semi-normalize the stories.
Yeah.
So it's not big superhero universe, because I thought people would think that would weird. They wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
So the gimmick I did for Monster Camp was kind of like the mutants in X-Men, where they just wake up and they have this ability or this change to them that they don't understand.
Yeah.
People would wake up as monsters.
Yeah.
And it was rare, but they didn't want people to feel alone, so a bunch of them set up a sleepaway camp, like a summer camp, where they can go and meet more people like themselves and have like friends and group up like this. And that was the whole point of that. And I thought that was fun. And you would, if you went back and read that, you would see some familiar characters. Even Michael.
Yep.
Michael was one of the camp counselors.
He was.
He was drastically different from what he is in the book.
Oh, he is. I mean, you used Michael on several two occasions.
What was the other one?
Am I thinking of the wrong Michael? You also have a
Curse Collector. Dangerous World is canon in Chris.
Oh yeah, that's right. I apologize. Yes,
Dangerous World is canon. Monster Camp is not.
Yeah, that's right.
But you also had Knucklevy and Paws. Knucklevy was in the main character's cabin, yeah. And Paws was in another group's cabin. I'm going to change a lot of how those characters work.
Yeah.
Because their personalities will not reflect from that book to the new book very well.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I've had time to further flesh out characters and character development.
Yeah.
This third book, Rise of the Renegades, by the time you get in there, they have their powers already.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, voice crack there. They have their powers already, and it's going to more focus on them as people.
Yeah.
Their personal pasts, what led them to be out and on their own like that. Mm-hmm. They are renegades. They are like, kind of dejected, yeah. And like
they don't really feel accepted where they were.
Right, and they have their own problems, and it's not only each of them dealing with those problems, but also having to also work together with each other, even though they all each have their problems. It's like, you're messed up, I'm messed up, but we got to deal with this somehow because we're the superheroes. We have responsibilities, and we got to work through and work up at the same time.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that with the same as with Chris and Lloyd.
Yeah.
You're going to be writing book club as a comprehensive story rather than chapter to chapter kind of thing.
Yes.
And releasing it as a physical copy.
That's true. Once again, promo for the actual physical book. It's thick. Of Chris and Lloyd on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, the websites. But soon as when I start writing Renegades on the Quotev, I will also be editing Book Club at the same time to be released in a physical book as well.
That is all. That actually is very much looking forward to it, and it will be. And I'm assuming like Chris and Lloyd.
Yes.
Spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the physical book. It will expand on the universe a bit. Like there's a whole chapter in this that wasn't in the original story.
Mm-hmm. Bonus chapter, please buy.
Yes.
Yeah, I will. I'm not just gonna be going in and like adding in the commas where I forgot them or
just grammatical stuff.
grammatical errors, fixing that. I'm also going to be like lengthening paragraphs, adding in whole scenes, more like in-depth personal thoughts between the characters. Just every it's just like in school when you had to write the rough draft.
Yeah.
And then the teacher handed it back and said, "That's good. Now do it again. Make it better. Make it longer."
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. The quotative is my rough draft for everyone to look at for free. But then the final product will be made into a book and put on Amazon.
That sounds...
And hopefully picked up by other places, such
Yeah.
as Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, very, very much hopefully. So, now, you have told me that you aren't just going back to like that the mystery man. Going back to the mystery man, you said that his piece on the board will be there till the end. You said you had a very big plan for the future, as in like you have the next how many years of books? How many books out?
How many? I don't have the entirety like plotted out and planned out exactly.
Yeah.
But I have like the titles of what I'm setting up to do next.
Yeah.
Like you know how Marvel does it. Like they have like the next 3 years of movies plotted out, even though they haven't started writing it or shooting it or even casting it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know what I'm going to do, so I have like the next 20 books or so plotted out.
Yeah. So there's much more to come of the Chris and Lloyd universe.
Yes, sir. Right now I'm working on plotting out what's going to happen in, as I hinted to at the end of this book, Whip Hand and Valor Volume 1. I'm working out the chapters, the adventures that they're doing. I'm putting everything in place so that by the time I'm done with Renegades and editing book club, hopefully I can move into doing the first Whip Hand and Valor book.
That would be awesome. Now, sorry, jumping back again to stories that you have written before and used. I don't know if you're actually wanting to say that you're going to be doing this, but you told me of another story that you had written that pertains to the Chris and Lloyd universe that you would like to revisit. Do you still have plans to revisit that?
I do plan on that, yes. I don't have exactly when I'm going to squeeze in the time to do it, but I'm going to revisit and redo the Black Rabbit book from my page.
Your Follow
the Rabbit.
Yeah.
Follow the Rabbit will be coming back. If I have enough work done on Renegades, I might bounce back and forth and do one chapter of Renegades on like earlier in the week, and then I'll do one chapter of Black Rabbit later in the week. Kind of like how I did with Chris and Lloyd when I uploaded that on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Maybe I'll do like an early day Renegades and Black Rabbit working on 2 books at the same time.
Yeah, because
if all goes well, but you got to remember at the same time I'm also editing book club into a full-fledged.
Exactly, and obviously you're working through this as well. You have a job, so
yeah.
But
yes, I have an actual job on top of this. They're not selling that well yet.
but when it comes to Follow the Rabbit, is that going to be like a full book, or is it more just going to be like a short book? Like, what can we expect from that?
First of all, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this, but I might scrap the Follow the Rabbit name because I do plan to do one book on each of the rabbits.
Yes.
I want to do a full story on each of the Black Rabbits' story because there's only 4 as of right now. We saw the first one in Follow the Rabbit, and we saw the 4th one in Chris and Lloyd, but there's been no sense of the 2nd or 3rd one. Yeah. And I think The third one especially, like I'm really wanting to do a book on the third Black Rabbit out of all of them. Um, like they just need their stories told because the Black Rabbits in general are also a pretty big part of what's going on here.
Yeah, you've clued me in on the story of the Black Rabbit because it seems like a kind of character that you are fairly proud of.
Yes,
in the way that
I like the Black Rabbit because it's not someone with superpowers. It's skill based, and then they're passing down a legacy of the Black Rabbit mantle down to other people worthy of wearing it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a how do I was trying I had a way of doing it. It's like I was gonna say Dread Pirate Roberts, but that's not quite the.
Yeah, and also I don't know who that is.
It's a reference to a movie that I'm sure you've seen, but we're just gonna skip past it because it's a horrible analogy, anyways.
Okay.
But moving on from the Black Rabbit and everything, and how you want to extend that story, we haven't gotten a whole lot since, but we have gotten a little bit of more characters in the story. With the Chris and Lloyd extended universe. You started on that a little bit.
I did. That I don't want to touch on that very much because that's really just more like a writing exercise when the mood strikes me. It's like, hey, I want to dip a little bit into Joshua a little more. So
Yeah.
I'll write like a page and a half about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is canon.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly important to the story. I mean, sure there are moments like that. You just saw one chapter where you saw the origin story of a villain who will appear in the comics in the books.
Mm-hmm.
You get backstory on people who have already been in the books, but it's not necessary. I will say that the Chris and Lloyd extended universe will evolve into something different that I plan to do, but I don't want to disclose that yet because I'm pretty still far out from it.
Okay, that's fair. We hadn't gotten a whole lot of that recently, so I was just wondering if you had plans with it or if it was just a.
No, I was focusing on book club at the time. Like that was really just used as a bumper to keep my brain going in between books.
Yeah.
And then when I jumped back on book club, I kind of left the extended universe to the side of it.
So when can we expect the next book to start being being released, or have you not started that yet?
The Renegades book?
Yes, the Renegades book, yes. Or do you not have a set date? Did you want to?
I don't have a set date yet because there's still a couple of things I still want to hammer out and get through because I haven't gotten all of the plot points that I want to touch on in Renegades hammered out yet, so I'm still working on that. But I want to shoot for like a late May or June start date for that on the.
Give yourself a couple months to work on book club.
Yes.
And who knows? Maybe the moon might strike you, and you might put out some more extended universe.
Yeah,
stuff.
maybe. There will be stuff working out. Like I don't stop working on this.
No,
like if I'm not putting anything out on the moment, that's because I'm working on something else.
Yeah,
and it's always in motion. I'm always part of that process deep in the story. Like this will be my life's work, so I want it to be good and I want it to be thought out.
That seems very. It's not very often you see someone who has this big a plan for a book series. Like usually it's for like a TV show or a movie or something like that.
Right.
Like very few books have this.
I mean, very pessimistic of you to assume that this isn't going to eventually be a TV show or movie.
No,
Thank you, best friend.
Cough, cough, Netflix. cough cough. Hey, if anyone knows Netflix, please like give him a call. Like that, well, he'd love to talk to him.
No, I do a lot of research and preparation for these books.
Yes.
For the World's Greatest Book Club, I took about a month of that in between time to read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
Like the book itself. Like I read it physically and I had an audiobook version of it, and I bought the physical book so I can always go back and reference it for quotes or plot points or something. Just because I wanted to integrate that book so deep into Clark's character that there wasn't going to be any way to fake that.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't just go on Spark Notes and be like, oh, here's the ... what happened. Here's highlighted quotes from the text. It's like, no, like, I wanted to read the book myself. I did. I very much enjoyed the book. I looked at the last page, I closed the book, and I said, wow, I picked the perfect book for some freak nerd to be obsessed with.
Oh, exactly. It is a very good book.
There's so much in it that is just math and science drawn out. Like there was like a whole giant paragraph talking about the lengths and the dimensions of the ship, and like
it was very detailed,
going very in detailed. Yeah, to the point where canonically Clark has a miniature model of it, because of course he does, that he built with his dad, just based on the covers of the books and what they described about it in the novel. But yeah, there will definitely be more references to that. There will be more parts of that book leaking into Clark's life, and I'm pretty sure at this point they gotta read it for the book club if they ever get to reading a book in this book club.
Yeah, exactly. They've not read a single book.
Never even touched a book.
We call it the world's greatest book club, but as a book club, they aren't doing the job very well.
Hey, they're doing more than most book clubs.
True, but that's more in the sense of, saving the town, not actually reading a book.
How many book clubs have you been in that saved the town? Let me think. 0.
Yeah. I've also been in 0 book clubs, so
that's fair. That's fair.
So
it's a fair statement, I think.
Yeah, I think it's true. I checked. But so I guess the only question I really have left that I can think of is will we see the book club in their own book again?
Yes, of course. I have a sequel for Chris and Lloyd, The Whip Hand of Valor, coming up, and then shortly after that, I'm planning out World's Greatest Book Club 2.
Well, that it seems fun to. Yeah. We have something to look forward to then.
They're definitely going to be more out there, taking on the superhero mantle, going up against villains more on the regular. Because now they're past the part of, I have my powers, what do I do with that? And they're leaning more into the, okay, I'm a superhero now, what do I do with that?
That seems like it will be very interesting to see what they actually do end up doing with that.
Yeah. It's very weird seeing the mirror between book club and Chris and Lloyd, because Chris and Lloyd is like, they tried very hard to get powers, and then they got their powers in the end, and they're slipping and falling over it, but you have the mask of it's a comedy, so it's not going to be taking itself seriously, but then you have World's Greatest Book Club, which is not a comedy, so there are like seriousness and struggles that they have to like emotionally and mentally work through with gaining those powers and gaining that responsibility and being the heroes that they need to be. So it's the same, like, 0 to hero story, but like one's taken lightly.
Yeah, that's something that I'm interested to see how you do in Whip Hand and Valor, because I mean now that they are superheroes, granted they've been in several life or death situations, but usually it's their own life or their own death that's in trouble. But now as superheroes, they are now responsible for many other people as well, and I'm interested to see how you plan on working through that.
Yeah,
so
it'll be interesting.
So I guess to close out, we have, again.
I mean,
what?
There's still other stuff we can talk about.
Oh, like what?
Well, we can start with the.
Was there? Yeah, I should have asked. Is there anything you wanted to bring up yourself?
Well, I mean, just as the last one, we got to bring up the fan base into this.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
The fan base. There was a drastic rise in vocal fans for World's Greatest Book Club.
I noticed that in the comments a lot.
Yeah,
yes.
they like World's Greatest Book Club. The comments went off. Like there was it didn't have as many readers as Chris and Lloyd did, or as many reads on it, but it had way more people commenting on every chapter, like voicing their guesses, their thoughts, ideas, or whatever, and it just brought in like a whole bunch new people, like a whole new group of people to this.
Do you think part of that could be in part to where, as in like in Chris and Lloyd, a lot of Chris and Lloyd was, comedy, so it was, they'd read it, they go ha, and then they wouldn't really have much to comment, whereas you both build it and made it World's Greatest Book Club as a mystery. Like, there was a lot going on. It had a lot much air of seriousness. So do you think that might have played into the fact of like you were able to I shouldn't say wrangle, but like attract a new audience, like a different type of audience?
Yeah, that, and also like it's just, I don't know exactly what circles on the site people are going to run. Like, I picked up a lot of people from like the comedy side for like the fun superhero whatever on Chris and Lloyd, but this was not entirely a superhero story. It was also like a mystery on top of that, like an action mystery, and that just groups in a lot of people on that side of it. That's the thing I like about writing on sites like this, especially when you have multiple books, is that every book that you put out, there will be people who that's their first book from you, and then they'll read through all of that. They're like, I've had so many people say this about World's Greatest Book Club. They read through all of it, or they read to catch up, and they're just like, man, that was so good. Now I'm sad it's done, or I was like, oh, I can't wait for more. And I'll be like, well, I have another one. And they're just like, oh, I didn't know that. So then they go back and read all that, and then they fall in love with that book. So when Renegades comes out, I'm going to have the people who came from Chris and Lloyd. I'm going to have the people who came from Book Club. And I'm going to have new people who come in for Renegades specifically. And then they're going to go back to Book Club and Chris and Lloyd.
Yeah, and speaking of fans, especially of Chris and Lloyd, I feel like we should have at least one. I know you shout them out. You shout them out in the book, shouting out Green, who did the
amazing cover for this book. This book probably would not have made it to actual book form if it wasn't for Green coming in clutch with the artwork. So thank you so much. Snow Droplet as well, always bringing in some great art. I got a World's Greatest Book Club fan art from Snow Droplet as well. I'll put that up on the screen. I really like that one too. That one is very well done. Did I show you that one?
I believe you did. It was the one of the book, correct? Or
no. It was them in their silhouettes of them as they're running through their tunnels.
Right. I remember that. Yeah, you did show me that, and
I'll show you again.
I actually both. I don't want to say astonished or shocked that you've built such a big community, but I also am, because these sites are very large, and it's and like I'm not part of the whole thing. Like the most I have of this is just I'm your friend. I give you moral support and feedback, and the inspiration for a character. Okay. But I am in awe of the amount of people that you have managed to amass to your story, and I am very proud of you. Yeah, proud of you, man. I'm very happy that you found your audience for the stuff that you really want to.
Thank you. Yes, I am so grateful and thankful for all of you for watching and reading my books. So far, I'm 2 for 2. Both of my books have at one point broken the top 5 books in their categories at their peak popularity. So I'm blown away by that.
Yo, that was very interesting because even me, I was looking forward to chapter after chapter, and it was always fun to see how you progressed the story, because even as someone who has known you for as long as I have and know how you think, you trying to guess what comes next, I was still having moments where I did not see it coming.
Right.
And it shocked me how much you're able to do that, because I've read a lot of books, and usually I can smell some stuff coming, and you've done a very good job of keeping me on my toes.
Thank you. I do try.
I hope that translates to you lot as well, so that you're able to do that, because even with some of the information that I have ahead of time, because in Chris and Lloyd, you would bounce ideas off of me a couple times, whereas in this book, I think you maybe only did it once, and it wasn't even how to do something or what the next thing should be. You actually asked me a question that was about whether or not you think you should put a storyline. I'm not gonna bring it in.
I was like, hey, is this too harsh?
Oh, it was that, and there was another thing that you asked, if hey, should I put this in that? Should I put?
I was like, do you think this is like since you're you're biased, but you don't have any inkling to what was going to happen in the book. What was that you picking up as a reader? Would this make sense if this happened to you?
Yeah. That's the extent of the input I had in this book, in this book, and so I was able to retain much of the feeling. At least I hope it was close to what the other readers have.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to me how much you were able to keep to surprise me in a lot of stuff, because I was just because there was some stuff in there you had a lot more visceral scenes in this book than you did for the other ones.
Yeah, the amount of times that when I'm writing and I leave something off like that, or when something big happens, and then you call me up later that day and I'm just like, hey man, you're like, dude.
Yeah, I
know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about when John and Jawbreaker are fighting down there, and Jawbreaker knocks John out, and he drags him over and puts his teeth onto the step.
Yeah, that scene was a scene that left me just itching for the next chapter.
He didn't even do it yet. He didn't do it at all. But in your head, it already happened.
Yeah, in my head, it was already
knew the intent.
That was moments like that. You had a lot more moments that were just kind of oh, this is happening. This is a thing that, oh my gosh, and that made for some interesting dynamics in at least in me reading the story, because because I'm a very visual guy, and sometimes it's hard for me to translate book to to an image in my head.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but you do a very good job of, at least in my opinion, of painting a picture of what's really happening in a story.
Yeah. Because I mean, I try to be as specific as I can be. Like, especially with like room layouts, I know I need to work on that because like it's not always clear. But like I have exactly the image in my head, and I just want to convey that to my best ability. And I know I'm gonna have a lot of problems describing costumes when I get more into the Chris and Lloyd superhero thing, especially in Whip Hand and Valor. So I'm just gonna do my best. I may have a few drawings to, give some amount of context to whoever I end up working with to do the covers for not only book club but for Renegades and like any other book in the future. I'll have to like really. I'll send them like a bunch of like reference things so that they can get a clear picture across to the readers on the front of the book, so that they go in already knowing what they look like. But.
So, which is something that you actually did a fairly good job of, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
You the costumes for the book club, like, was there, how many of them did you like have the costume already in mind, or did you just come up with like you had the character, you didn't have the look of the character, and so you gave them that, you ended up coming up with that costume?
Kristen, Clark, and Julie, I had their costumes drawn out in full, so I knew exactly what they were going to look like. John and Pamela, I was really on the fence of. Like I got... John, I knew I wanted to do the motorcycle helmet eventually, because I was like, well, I just got it at this point.
Yeah.
Because they are very much hiding their identity, so we can't just have his face out. And I think like any other kind of mask just wouldn't do him service. So if he had like a big like flaming motorcycle helmet, I think that would just hit his like brutish, like rough.
Yeah. It makes him very intimidating.
Yeah.
Like, even though like he's the size of a high schooler, like it's still very intimidating.
And then Pamela, as far as I knew I wanted her to have just like the mask and then a purple outfit, but I never, like, even to this day, I never drew that one out, so I don't exactly have a like a pin perfect design for it. It's just vague purple outfit with mask. But that's kind of that's her kind of simple.
Exactly. And when it comes to costumes, because that is one thing that I know me and you have bounced back and forth a lot on when it comes to Chris and Lloyd's costumes, because we had a lot of that.
I sent you so many drawings.
And I was trying to come up with ideas of my own for at least Valor and stuff like that, and it's still up in the air, I think, at this point, isn't it?
I think we landed on
at least good design.
I'm happy with where it's at now.
Yeah, it's much like the superpowers. Like, what was it, like the week before you wrote
the week before, like, they got their powers, I was like, all right, we need to decide.
Yeah, like we haven't decided on a set list of powers.
No, I mean, we had like it was like pretty much, okay, last chance to change anything before we go through with this. Are we happy? And then we were like, well, and I was like, oh my god.
It's like, I feel like we brought up some. I feel like we brought up some good points and made it a little.
Yeah. We went way into discussion about that in the first podcast, though.
Yeah, we did. I think. Yeah, we might have to revisit it later.
Yeah,
at a later date.
I did kind of have that moment when they were at Clark's house and I was writing the chapter. I was sat back in my chair and I'm like, all right, I need to decide what these people's costumes look like.
Yeah,
it's like John and Pamela.
Like, I have to decide now.
Everyone else out, but like John and Pamela, I'm like, okay, do I want to do this and that? Like, Clark's suit was originally just going to be like straight black.
Yeah.
But I wanted that to mirror the gems on the book, so I gave it like it's like a really, really, really dark blue.
Yeah, like a almost
like this curtain, but
yeah,
like darker.
yeah, like a darker version of that. Yeah. Like almost like a sea sea at night.
Like in all practicality, it's black, but like you can tell that there's blue in it.
Yeah, kind of
like that makes any sense. I'm not an art guy.
No, that makes 100% sense. It's actually like how this is gonna sound really weird, but that's why, for reference, you know the painting Starry Night?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why the colors in that are so vibrant and it's all blue and stuff is because the night sky isn't actually black. It's actually a very, very deep blue.
Yeah.
And so that's something that is it's something that not a lot of people are able to pick up on. Like me, the only reason I know that is because I know that that's what it is. Like I can't pick up on it, but that's kind of what I expect when I think.
It's something like it's just very, very, very dark black.
Like it's blue, almost black, but you can definitely tell that it's still blue.
Yeah, like that's what Clark is. So I wanted to incorporate the gems on the cover of the book. I'm not going to address the green one at the moment.
Yeah, we're not going to. It's Power Rangers.
I'm not saying anything. I'm no comment on the green gem as of yet.
Okay, got it.
Okay,
that's fair enough.
But everyone else, I wanted to somewhat color code with the book to them. Like the book is theirs now.
Yeah, the book is like
they in their possession. Like they are like the guardians of the book, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is, and speaking of the book, there's
the book.
You tease
available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
What are we at 5 on this?
Link below.
What are we at 5 times we've done that now?
Yeah.
but you kind of tease the thing at the end of the book.
I did. Yes.
There's a thing, and do you have any comment on that?
Do I have any comment on that? No.
Okay, got it.
That's no comment.
That's fair. That's fair.
To jog your memory at the end, the mystery man, he's pondering what to do next, and then he looks over and he says to Deed, he goes, the plan's not completely ruined, something like that. He goes, we still have the second book.
Yes.
And he goes, how would you like a promotion?
Yeah, so this is just...
Okay, so not entirely no comment, but I believe that the second book will have a much bigger impact on the universe and especially the book club than the first one will.
Which I look very much forward to, and yes. I hope everyone else does too.
Yes.
So, I honestly, I've run out of things to bring up about the story.
That's fair.
We've covered a lot.
It is a much shorter story with a lot less to look deeper into. Because I mean, Chris and Lloyd, bigger book first of all.
Yes.
Second of all, each chapter is from like a different corner of the universe I'm setting up.
Yes.
And book club is just
one corner of the universe.
Yeah, it's just one corner.
Yeah, it's one comprehensive story from one corner.
It's I believe one little tiny corner of the dodecahedron.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see where you go because I'm assuming it's safe to I think it's safe to assume that the Chris and Lloyd books are going to be your big your big moments. Like those are definite like major universe expanding books kind of thing.
Well, for the most part, I just want to have fun with Chris and Lloyd.
It is a very fun
Chris and Lloyd is going to be... It's the reason it's the mainline story is because it's just... it's literally just skipping down the path of this superhero stuff. Like on your left you'll see this, and over there you can see that. And if anybody wants to get off the bus and go check out any of those, that's where the other books will take place.
Which I think is a very good. Good idea.
Black Rabbit showed up in Chris and Lloyd, and I'm making a Black Rabbit book. So if you really like the Black Rabbit, you can go check that out. Or it's just introducing characters and events and ideas and stuff that I can split off into other books and then regroup back into that, universal line, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you have anything else to bring up at all that you can think of, because I think I've now officially run out.
I did want to say that you can buy the book now on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. $16.99. It's a good deal. That's a good price. I guarantee it. But no.
Shameless plug.
I might cut that out. Only other thing I wanted to say is thank you everybody for reading and watching. I'm so glad I can finally start making these things reality after them being stuck in my head since I was 5 years old, and building this up over decades and just like years and years, like making characters, making stories, and not being able to do anything but just think about them. That was the extent I could do with all of this. But now I have evidence that other people can look at the things inside my head, and I can talk to them about it, and they can share ideas about what I've been living alongside of in my head with for my entire life practically. And it's just outstanding and amazing, and I can't thank you enough. And I appreciate that more than the world. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a good wrap up of talking about the second book.
Yeah, and others.
And
plus, second book plus.
Yeah. It's a very big thing, and to anyone who hasn't watched the first podcast, go ahead and watch that. It goes much more in depth about Chris and Lloyd Want Superpowers. Available for purchase on Amazon.
Might want to read the book first. Might want to read the books first before you watch the video.
Yeah, you might want to read the books first, because otherwise you're gonna get some spoilers.
Otherwise, it won't make any sense.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the reference back to spoiler warning at the beginning of both videos.
And the minute-long spoiler warning in the first one,
Yeah. So, I hope you guys are enjoying the books as much as I have.
I hope you're enjoying reading them as much as I am having a good time writing them.
So to everyone out there, happy reading.
Thank you. Thank you for reading.
Mm-hmm.